What's up, guys? Today we're talking Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4. Alright, so usually what I like to do in the beginning of each review is to look back on the previous review to see what predictions we got right or wrong. Last week we predicted that Arya Stark would not make it to Winterfell, that she would in fact get distracted and turn the other way for some reason. She might possibly join the Brotherhood without banners and meet back up with the Hound. That was not the case. Arya did make it to Winterfell. There was a moment where she disappeared when the two guards looked away. And I thought that she was actually just gonna peace out of Winterfell, like she realized that she didn't want to be there at the last second. That would have been really disappointing if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm glad she ended up going to the crypt to visit her father. I thought that was a nice touch. The fact that Sansa met her at the crypt, I also thought was really nice. She immediately knew that that's where Arya would go, and it was nice for them to unite. It kind of had a little bit of the steam taken out of it, considering that the last episode we got two Starks, reuniting. So like two Starks uniting in episodes back to back, not that touching. I think when Arya and Jon unite, if they do unite, that will be nice. The next thing I was expecting, but I didn't get, was Ser Jorah reuniting with Daenerys. Ser Jorah was cured 2 episodes ago and he left, so it would only make sense that he would get to Daenerys. However, this episode takes place right on the bumper of the last episode, so there just wasn't enough time for him to make the journey. And after the latter events of this episode and the trouble that I'm going to talk about that's being foreshadowed in the preview, I think that will be a more fitting place for Ser Jorah to show up. Final little prediction that we were going over is whether or not Dany would be more conciliatory to Jon Snow, and she really wasn't. It seemed like it was going in that direction when they were in the cave together, but no. Now, there was something about that scene that troubled me, where Daenerys and Jon are in the cave of Dragonglass, and they seem to have reached an understanding, but Daenerys still says that in order to get her support, Jon would have to bend the knee.
I will fight for you. I will fight for the North. When he bends the knee.
And that was the hard cut to them coming outside. They kind of left it unresolved, and I feel like there's a chance, and I really hope this doesn't happen, but there's a chance that they could cut back to that later, and that's when it will be revealed that Jon did in fact bend the knee to Daenerys Targaryen, and I would fucking absolutely hate that. They could also cut back to there and reveal that Jon and Daenerys agreed to marry one another, and that would also feel really cheap if I'm being perfectly honest. Especially since I've been saying Daenerys is the villain this whole fucking time. I don't want her to be wed to Jon Snow, who is not a villain. Also, that whole thing about him being her nephew, I know it really doesn't matter in the Game of Thrones universe, but still kinda meh. Meanwhile, back at Winterfell, we get a scene between Arya and Brienne of Tarth where they do a little sparring match and Arya gets the better of her. Don't take this the wrong way because I do like Arya, but Brienne of Tarth is a legit swords person. She beat the Hound, and Arya's getting the best of her when Arya really couldn't beat the Waif. Like, I know the Faceless people are very skilled in combat, but I don't know. It was a cool scene, but inside the context of the show, it was like, Brionne's a little better than that. Come on. We also get another scene with Brandon Stark, aka the Weirdo, and this time it's with Littlefinger, which I love. We haven't seen enough of Littlefinger. And Lord Baelish gives Brandon the knife that was originally used to kill him in, I believe, episode 2. It's a Valyrian steel dagger with a dragon bone handle. Brandon ends up giving it to Arya because he's like, what good is a dagger for a cripple? And I know that might sound like an awkward segue of Brandon meeting Arya again, but it was awkward when they met. Brandon's still on that whole I'm a three-eyed raven, so that gives me license to be a weirdo train. He also showed no emotion previously when he said goodbye to his friend and companion, which really sucked, but I guess seeing the past, present, and future has to make you a weirdo. The next thing that we're going to get into is the Iron Bank, and I always thought the Iron Bank was very similar to the White Walkers. They're introduced very early in the series as a looming threat, and I always thought that ignoring the Iron Bank would eventually lead to the downfall of some major characters. The Iron Bank always gets what's due. But in this episode, Cersei pays back the Iron Bank in one fell swoop. They load up all the gold that they got from Highgarden and they end up giving it to the Iron Bank, so that's done with. In fact, Cersei solidified her position so well that the Iron Bank wants to lend her money again. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I believe that she's gonna buy the same sellswords that Stannis had. So make no mistake, Cersei at this point is winning the war. We get another reunion, this time it's between Jon Snow and Theon Greyjoy, and I feel like Jon Jon should have at least punched him once. I mean, Jesus, he betrayed Robb Stark. He killed the farmer's 2 boys. He took Winterfell. He killed that guy with the weird beard. I'll put a picture of him up on screen. I don't remember his name. I'm not saying Jon should have killed Theon because he has suffered more than enough, but at least a punch or something. This dude betrayed your family. Alright, but enough about Theon. Him and Jon reuniting, not a big part of the episode in my opinion. What was a big part of the episode is that we finally, after 6 seasons of waiting, got to see the dragons and the Dothraki fight.
We can hold them off.
And neither one of them disappointed. I think this was said before, but nobody can take the Dothraki in an open field just because of the way they fight. They've been described as absolute savages, and they definitely fight like fucking savages. But even beyond the Dothraki reputation is the reputation of dragons. And Drogon, the one dragon at the battle, definitely proved that dragons are a game changer. Plain and simple. This battle was a perfect marriage of things that I thought were awesome and also horrific at the same time. The first thing Daenerys has Drogon do is burn through the Lannister line, and he's literally churning the fucking soldiers into ashes. Like, you see Jaime looking around a lot during the battle and seeing his people disintegrate. It's freaking crazy. And the ones who don't disintegrate are being gutted by the Dothraki blades. I remember a lot of people complaining last season about Jaime and how he basically reverted back to who he was in the first season when he went up to the Tully guy and he said that he would chuck his baby into the castle if it meant that he could see Cersei again. But at the start of this battle, Bronn suggests that Jaime retreat and go back to King's Landing, and Jaime refuses. He definitely has progressed as a character and he believes in honor, and I believe that is due to him hanging out with Brienne of Tarth so much. But the dude's still in love with Cersei, and the more he's around her, the more he becomes like his old self. As far as the battle goes, it was pretty one-sided. Daenerys, the Dothraki, and the dragon fucking destroyed them. But there were some shining moments. Sam's older brother fucking saved Jaime's life, and Sir Bronn of the Blackwater is such a fucking badass. He ended up getting to the scorpion and actually wounded Drogon with the scorpion. Which, by the way, proves that that weapon works. And if I'm Cersei, I'm building 100 of those shits and I'm fucking putting them all over King's Landing and having them manned 24/7. We saw a lot of the destruction from Tyrion's point of view, and you know it kinda has to bother him to see the Lannister lions being fucking torched by the dragon. I've been predicting this whole season that there was gonna be a wedge driven between Daenerys and Tyrion, and this looks like it supports that prediction. Earlier in the episode, she accused Tyrion of holding loyalties to the Lannisters over her, and Tyrion seemed really uncomfortable with all the destruction that the dragons caused. There was a little moment with him and the Dothraki when the Dothraki said that your people can't even fight. And Tyrion was a little too stunned to say anything back, and when he looked down, he saw the Dothraki fucking gutting people like savages. He's not going to be comfortable with that level of destruction, and since this is Daenerys' first victory, I can see her following the path of letting the Dothraki fucking savage everybody, and her burning everything from the sky. I know a lot of fans have it in their head that the end of Game of Thrones is going to be Jon, Tyrion, and Daenerys all riding one of the respective dragons and saving the day from the White Walkers, but I don't think it's going to be that simple. And I've been saying for a long time that Daenerys Targaryen is the villain of this series. She is not the hero. Remember when she left that Prince of Persia motherfucker in Marine and she was saying, I had to tell a man that loved me to not come with me, and I felt nothing. I just wanted it to be over. That's not a hero. That's a mad queen. That's who Daenerys is going to become. And I feel like Tyrion is starting to see that. There's also a great moment that ended the episode where Jaime decided that he was going to charge Daenerys and Drogon while the dragon was wounded. Daenerys is trying to pull the spear out of Drogon's neck and she's at her most vulnerable point, and Jaime is not a coward. And Jaime, if you remember, wants to fill his page in that Book of Knights with something other than Kingslayer. And I think slaying a dragon or slaying the mother of dragons was too big of an opportunity for him to pass up. Of course, Drogon senses his approach and he's about to breathe fire on Jaime, and Bronn saves him. Bronn is just like the clutchest person in all of Westeros. I feel like if any of the Starks knew Bronn, then they would still be alive at this point. Bronn and Jaime fall into the water, and that's how the episode ends. As for the preview, it's not looking good for the Lannister forces. Daenerys demands that all of them bend the knee or get burned. I think Sam's father is going to refuse to bend the knee, and he's going to be the first one torched by the dragon in the next episode, assuming that the battle's over by the time the next episode starts. But at the point where they're going to surrender, you're going to see Sam's father stand up to Daenerys, because Sam's father is very noble. There's a possibility that he just gets captured and we see an interaction with him and Jon Snow, but I think he's going to be the first person killed because he'll be the first person to stand up to Daenerys. We also get an excerpt excerpt of a scene with Tyrion and Varys where Varys is like, you have to get her under control. So I think everybody else is starting to notice her shift towards being the Mad Queen. However, in the next episode, that's going to get nerfed a little bit because I do believe that's when Ser Jorah is going to show up, and he's going to be the one to calm her down, and he might even take Tyrion's place as the Hand of the King. He'll definitely become her most trusted advisor. So if Jaime and Bronn get captured, Tyrion's not going to want either one of them to be executed. Daenerys is going to want to execute both of them. Bronn wounded her dragon, and Jaime killed her father. Now, while I do believe that they'll probably both just float away on some total bullshit and not get caught by the Dothraki or by Daenerys, I think that if Daenerys does capture them, then it's pretty much over for Tyrion and Daenerys. We get a shot of Dany on top of the dragon staring down Jon Snow, and we see the dragon ferociously open his mouth. I hope that this is a moment where Jon Snow will become Jon Snow the Unburnt, but I think Jorah's gonna show up and he's gonna calm her down, and he's gonna be like, look, this guy's man cured me. He risked his life to save me. My father entrusted him with his sword. And I think Jorah's return will convince her to bring it back down a little bit. But there's definitely a reason to be worried. Olenna Tyrell told Daenerys to be the dragon. She lost every battle until she followed that advice. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Do you think Jon Snow will become Jon Snow the Unburnt? Do you think Ser Jorah will return? Do you believe, as I do, that Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen is the Mad Queen in the making? Let me know in the comments. As usual, if you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. Subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on my content. This has been my review of Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4. Till next time.